Good afternoon. This is Kate Blum, the Associate Executive Director at the National Association of State Directors for Career and Education Consortium. We are going to get started with today's webinar. We are very excited. Thank you all, first of all, for joining. We are very excited for today's webinar and to tackle this topic. It's obviously one of great interest given the high registration and the feedback we've gotten from the field, and questions have already started coming in. There's an area of interest badging, how it relates to the competency-based education is a topic that's really emerging in a lot of conversations, both within the CT community, but also within the broader education community at the K-12 and post-secondary level, as well as in workforce development, private companies. Really is seeing a way of opening up opportunities for valuing, identifying, demonstrating skill, knowledge, and competencies. So it's a topic that I personally am very interested in, which is why I'm really excited for today's conversation. We have a terrific set of presenters who will walk us through the basics of badging, including what they look like in practice, and one state is thinking about lessons from a recent pilot and looking at their own system, at how they could really attack this in a more comprehensive way. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's just jump right in. First, to just send a quick thank you to our host, Cisco, as well as to Krista Hughes, who you've all been talking with. If you have any technical challenges, please let her know. She is a whiz with all this and is here to help us. So thank you very much, Cisco, for making today possible. I'd then like to just introduce our panelists, and then I'll turn it over and we'll jump right in. So first up will be Jade Forrester, who is the Marketing Community Manager for the Badge Alliance, who will really walk us through sort of the basics, a step-by-step of what goes into a badging system, calling us all the way from England. So this is our international webinar. Next up, we'll have John Foster, who's the CEO of NOCTI and NOCTI Business Solutions, to talk a little bit more about badging in the lens of CT and that NOCTI recently led with a number of states to really see what badging looks like in practice. To then carry that thread forward, Marie Parati, who is the project coordinator for CTEach at a regional occupational program in California, which was one of those pilot sites to really talk about some of the lessons that they learned at the local level around badging. And finally, we'll have Russ, who is a state CT director from California Department of Education, who will sort of pull it together and bring it up to the state level. I already introduced myself from NASDCTEc. And so with that, I am going to turn this over to Jade to get us started.
Hi, Jade. You.
Jade.
Computer turned sound off.
I'm still a little bit of a technical difficulty. Sorry, I'm not hearing you. I don't know if other people are.
Jade, you're muted within the webinar. Do you have a mute option on your phone or on your headphones?
All functions are turned off, so I should.
We can hear now.
I can now. Excellent.
Yes.
That doesn't do anything differently. All right. Well, hopefully that will keep up for the rest of my presentation. So apologies for that. Let me know if you lose me at any point. Make my way through my slides now. So again, thank you guys for having me. I'm going to quickly move to my next slide. Let me know if you can do that either. So today I'm going to cover the basics of what open badges are, what the Badge Alliance is, and look ahead a little bit and leave hopefully a couple of minutes for Q&A if I didn't just use up those minutes with technical difficulties. So with what open badges are. So badges are representations of skills or achievements. Scout might be an example that comes to many people's minds, but we've also seen badges being increasingly used online for social platforms such as Foursquare, and for real work-based skills, education, knowledge, and competency sets. What if we could use these badges for learning? You could capture a more complete learning path. We could add learning to key stakeholders, such as potential employers, help build and communicate a person's reputation and identity in badges, and build an entire map of learning pathways and opportunities for further learning. Through ecosystem where learning is connected across contexts and lifetimes, and badges can offer us a way to get there, and not badges, but the important assessments behind the badge. Here's just a snapshot of some early adopters of badges. As you can see, we've got higher education, government departments, after-school programs, and some big-name corporations and cultural institutions there as well. So a little bit about how badges can achieve all of that. So individual badges, but about a shared badge ecosystem. Digital badges, but open badges. Earner, and she can go to after-school programs, free online courses, or government agencies and earn a bunch of really cool badges. And she can put backpack or portfolio, and there she can share them out to personal sites, so working profiles, blogs, or online resumes. So the result, she can access learning, jobs, and opportunities that might not have been available to her before. The infrastructure, the technical plumbing that really supports this whole ecosystem was developed by the Mozilla Foundation and is currently maintained by the Badge Alliance, and that's what makes the ecosystem flow from those badge issuers out to the new opportunities. Based on an open technical standard, within the badges, it's hard-coded into the badge image, and it contains information about the issuer and earner, criteria for earning the badge, any evidence, existing standards that the badge aligns with, and tags to help categorize. Image members, you put this together a couple of years ago that kind of shows the anatomy of an open badge with all of that important metadata clickable through the badge image. A snapshot of a badge from the badge backpack. So in the ecosystem, it's more than just a badge, but it's a detailed representation of what one knows and what they can do. Shot image again showing where the infrastructure metadata fills in that gap between issuers, the earner, and the opportunities. A quick snapshot of some examples of badges. We've got after-school programs such as the Providence After School Alliance. We've got Apple programs and citywide badging systems such as the Cities of Learning, which started last year with the Chicago Summer of Learning and is now expanded to 4 cities. So we've got Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Pittsburgh, all doing year-round badgeable learning opportunities for youth. Within have UC Davis, which is using badges as part of a broader social learning platform. And within, like my image is gone there, but within the workforce, we've got the Manufacturing Institute, which has been using badges to align industry standards with workplace training. The Badge Alliance is a network of organizations and individuals building and enhancing the open badging ecosystem, values of openness, agency, and innovation. So we saw of this year at the Summit to Reconnect Learning, and that's our Executive Director, Erin Knight, with our founding members on the stage there. Which is the constellation model for social change, which brings together multiple groups and sectors to work towards joint outcomes and seeding the work in working groups. So with our soft launch, we announced an initial 10 working groups, and since our launch in February, we've also added another 2. So there's a quick overview of our 12 working groups. And since more than 650 organizations signing up to contribute and participate in those working groups, which is really exciting. Looking ahead, badge of a broader conversation about competency-based learning, which we will go into more depth with the speakers that will follow me today. Badges create and signal personalized learning pathways, acknowledging that learning is not one size fits all, but it's a lifelong endeavor that is different for each individual. And that learners in control of their data by being a credential that learners can take with them wherever they go. So these are digital credentials for the modern age. They're based and verified. They've skills and achievements, and across lifetimes as a portfolio of what you know and can do. And they act as currency to carry with you and share across the web. Connected, and as I'll be resting on this slide for too long, I'll make sure that all of this information is available to anyone afterwards. You can join a working group at badgealliance.org. You can do weekly community calls every Wednesday. You can connect with us on Twitter using the at Badge Alliance, and you can also reach out to us directly by emailing badges@badgealliance.org. So I don't know if doing questions within each section or if we're going to save them to the end, but if we have time for questions now, I'm happy to take them, or I'm happy to wait as well.
Thanks, Jade. A great overview of badges and some of the major pieces and the work that's going on really across many organizations and many districts. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and send them to me in a chat or to the panelists. We will take them as they come, but we'll also certainly, protect time at the end for Q&A. I have a couple questions, but I also want to make sure we get through all of our presenters, so I'm gonna hold them until the end and then potentially come back around. So with that, we will move the ball over to John Foster to talk us through some of NOCTI's work in this area.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us here on Badging 101. We really appreciate the interest that we've been generating, and I have to thank Jade for again a great overview. I've gotten Jade over the last couple of months, and really appreciate her insights into the Badge Alliance, and she's getting here. Anyway, let me get my slides up. So we're kind of calling badging, the next disruptor to, educational systems. When we started, looking at badges, this kind of depicted our attitude. But for a serious look, we learned that badges were something we really needed to take seriously. And, here's part of the reason why. If you take a look at that slide, use of a badge or digital badge or open badges is a symbol of accomplishment. If you look at the words that I highlighted there in red, skill, competency, beyond traditional classrooms, more complete picture, signals to potential employers, these words came off the open badge site. These words, as all of you or most of you know, I would assume, are familiar to career and technical education and career and technical educators, around the country. So, down there at the bottom, CTE really equals competencies, and competencies, are depicted by badges, and therefore, CTE and badges really kind of go together. Of the badge ecosystem, you saw Jade's graphic as well. Of course, when you start to look at industry standards and industry association standards and things like that, you start to get a feeling of how this whole badge movement can connect to CTE. You look at the top of our screen there, where it's developers. These are the folks who actually could be, in my particular example, could be developing the standards that the badges are based on. To use Jade's words, the assertions, what the badges are based on are those standards. And then issuers, it could be almost anybody, and I'm sure that the open movement would like to see lots and lots of people recognizing students for the learning that occurs, everywhere. But in case, example I'm going to talk about, the issuer happened to be my organization, NOCTI. And then the learners, the CTE students are down below, and then if you keep rotating and following arrows, the next part of the ecosystem are the displayers, those social media sites that have technology to display badges and also show the validity and credibility information that's baked into those badges, not just the icon, but the information that the badge carries with it. And then, of course, lastly, the viewers. And the viewers could be almost anybody as well. It could be employers, they could be coordinators, they could be teachers, administrators, all sorts of things. But the important thing to remember is that these badges signify competence. That competence can be displayed to any one of several audiences in the CTE community. We really covered what an open digital badge is pretty well, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but I do want to just highlight again some key words. When you look at some Jade said, think about, in the first bullet, think about the word transparency. Think about the ability of an employer or a teacher to be able to look at what a student's competencies and skills really are, and be able to look at those and address those from perhaps a third party, from perhaps a set of validated or reliable standards. Bullet. Think about documentation of skills. Think about the old days of CTE or vocational education in the United States for a bit, and we tracked competencies on progress charts by putting check marks in classrooms and things like that. Think about the upgrade or the upskilling a program like badges would bring to documenting skills. And stackable is a word that's overused in our community, but badges could be stackable. We think about the possibility of overlap between different occupational areas. Think about the area of safety and just maybe the manufacturing or construction cluster. That area of safety cross-cuts multiple occupations, whether you're a plumber or a carpenter or a mason or whatever. So we have those credentials that could pertain to multiple occupational areas. And the ideal thing, and I know Jade mentioned this, but these badges could represent both formal and informal achievements. So they could represent things that really give the employer a good idea of what the student is really like, both inside and outside of their technical learning. So my good friend and mentor Ken Gray wrote called Other Ways to Win, but he used to have us do a little exercise, and I apologize for bird walking here a little bit, but he used to have us do this exercise. It was called the Sunday Morning Research Project, and it goes something like this: you take a look at a major newspaper, a Washington Post or a New York Times, or a major newspaper on a Sunday, and you go to the Help Wanted pages, and the idea is to take a look at that Help Wanted page and see what skills employers are looking at. And so I pulled a couple of these, and I know you probably can't read them unless you have a really big screen. But I pulled a couple of these, and if you look at them, I pulled them from a couple different clusters, and they really all, in one way or another, specify specific skills and specific competencies that employers are actually looking for. Think for a minute about how a badge viewer might look at this kind of information. It might save a whole lot of time. A badge could eventually, if employers adopt this method, it could be seen as kind of a shorthand for employee competence. So thinking in terms of badges and career and technical education, kind of think about that as well. So our nation needs a strong technical workforce with verified competence. Our own CTE programs deliver that competence. We communicate that competence to others, all sorts of people in structure in our ecosystem. We need to increase student retention, engagement, and motivation, and we need a system that's credible and easy to use. And so we kind of thought badges might actually be the answer. And so we started to dig into badges. And back in November, we put together a little article that we ran in Techniques magazine which talked about badging and the promise that we thought it had back then. But you know, we really didn't stop there. We went forward and we thought, you know, we're gonna try this. We're gonna see what badges actually mean to a high school student. We're gonna try to see if students are, you know, engaged, if they're slightly more motivated. We're gonna try this out. So the National Occupational Competency and Testing Institute, as we on the call know, did an open badge beta, and it was to you know, to see if badges would be received in a secondary setting. So up to 5 states, and you can see those 5 states there: California, Minnesota, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Virginia. And you all see that we tagged 50 schools in those 5 states. Now, we didn't use a lot of students. We had about 3,200 students, career and tech students, that were all in the program completion phase. And our focus was something that we call college credit recommendation badge. So the way it worked was pretty simple. Some of you out there that are listening to this know that our assessments have been approved by the National College Credit Recommendation Service. The way that works is if you score 70% on a written test, any written test in any technical area, your college credit recommendation badge. So, for college credit recommendation. So we thought, well, we consistent cut score across all of the areas that we assess in. Let's use that and award a badge based on that as well. So that's really what we did. We awarded the opportunity for a digital badge to any one of those 3,200 students in those 5 states to hire a digital badge if they have 70% on any NOCTI written assessment. So that's essentially the way the thing worked. Now, Parati, who's going to follow me here, we one beta test sites in California, and of course, Weichel, most of you on the call know, is the state director in California. So we wrote a little bit of an article based on our experience with this beta test and how badges were received. We weren't really trying to check the technical aspects of badges. We were to check whether or not they'd be received by a secondary education community, or whether we were too far in front or too far behind, or exactly what we were. So, I did slip in a couple of slides here too. Jade, a little teeny bit off topic, but Jade showed the Mozilla backpack, and I just wanted to show you, you know, my backpack and the way that badges can be displayed. There's one way you can separate, you know, categorize, I guess, your badges. Categorize mine based on workplace readiness and on technical skills. And you see I've only earned 3 badges there, but you get that they're in 2 different categories. And this is what they look like with the assertions pulled out. So these are the college recommendation badges that I was talking about. And it was all the reliability and credibility data that is into the badge when it travels to a posting site. So anyway, because of all this, we wrote another article that was called The Practicality of Digital Badges. And in this particular article, we basically wrote about what happened with that 5-state pilot. And I think this was run this year in ACT's Techniques magazine. So I'm going to pause for questions. I'll try to catch up with the text messages or the chat messages that I've been receiving while the next speaker is speaking. But at this point, I think we moved over to.
I'm gonna jump in. This is Kate. We have a couple questions that I think, before we get into sort of the more specifics of what this looks like in practice, which I think is all of us are very interested in sort of understanding the challenges of implementation, right, where the rubber meets the road. We've had a couple questions that are sort of broad, I think would be good for John and Jade to address. So one of them is around sort of how badges are similar or dissimilar or replace or augment industry recognized credentials, those that are already out there. And then sort of a similar question about, you know, how they also might replace or augment employability skill panels. And I'll sort of add my own flavor to that, which is, you know, the challenge or an opportunity, and Jade maybe could speak a little bit in some of the sites that she recommended around sort of the awareness in the employer community is, right, in terms of as it relates to industry recognized credentials, which have a level, obviously, of recognition, understanding in the business community, and sort of where and how badges are starting to penetrate that community?
I get that question, if that's okay, Jay. You know, I would, you know, we're very, very early stages of this whole movement, particularly in terms of co-education and employer recognition and all that kind of thing. You know, at this point, I would certainly see, you know, Open Digital Badge as an augmentation to what already exists, as opposed to a replacement. And kind of the way that we're viewing it at NOCTI, and I know we're just one little example of folks who are participating in the Badge Alliance. But when you think about some of the folks that are trying to implement badges, one of the slides that was showed some higher ed institutions, and you know, as an example, when presentations about this, we often refer to Purdue and the Purdue Passport system. And the Purdue Passport system basically gives people who are hiring Purdue graduates a bigger look at their students. So when a Purdue graduate goes to a potential employer with a transcript from Purdue, the employer can see that, but they really don't have a sense of what the student is like. Think about what it would mean if they had a sort that indicated that they were, I don't know, the editor of the local paper, or they worked the blood bank on the weekends, or they spent summer working for Habitat for Humanity. Think about what that means in terms of the employer's interest in hiring that student. It gives the employer a well-rounded picture of the student. So, I mean, where things could go, and that's where some folks are kind of focusing their efforts. I'll talk about some other things.
Sure. Can you? This is the thing that I would add into the question about injury certifications is that the key thing about badges is that metadata. We've seen a couple of screen grabs of those badges within the backpack. You know, badges are evidence-based, so where their certificates or diplomas or other credentials aren't dimensional, I guess, for lack of a better term. You know, you can't click through a transcript or diploma or certificate, but a badge offers within it itself contains all the information you need to understand the credential and the competency that it represents. As John said, you know, it definitely acts as a supplement or an augmentation to traditional credentials because it can help sort of fill in those gaps. Traditional credential can't showcase a full range of skills. Badges can be to capture that. And then in terms of sort of badge, we have a question about badging a solution or a concept. We have over 14,000 independent badge issuers, and they've issued almost 4 million badges worldwide. Sort of the projected number for the end of 2014 is around 4 million, and that's due to a CGI commitment to action that we participated in. Last year started as 2 million better futures with the aim of helping 1 million students and 1 million workers access better opportunities using badges. This year, we upped that commitment to 10 million better futures because we had already doubled that 2 million goal within 1 year. So we definitely have a large base of issuers, and it's growing all the time. Again, it's across all sectors. We've got K through 12, higher ed, workforce training, professional development, adult education, and informal learning. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Just add just a little piece about the employer adoption piece too, if I may. I've been doing a little bit of work with the Philadelphia Digital On-Ramp Project, which is a badging project that the Badge Alliance has been involved in, and they are in the process of rolling badges out to employers. So this is all very new to most employers. Clearly, we're on the cutting edge. But part of the reason for doing this presentation was that we hope you also see potential in badges for our particular community.
Thanks. I think that's really good context. And I mean, I think you're right. This is such an emerging issue, and a lot of the questions we're getting are sort of about the nuts and bolts. So we'll try to make sure we have some time for that at the end. Just really briefly before we move on to Marie, there are a couple questions, specific questions for John about some of the details around the beta in terms of, you know, what pass rate was among students, and, you know, how many tests or, you know, different assessments were then broken up into those badges.
I didn't bring the numbers with me, but what I can tell you is that we saw, and I think some of those numbers are in the article that's actually on the screen right now, the Practicality Digital Badges. And certainly, if you send me an email, I can get that for you. But it prompted us. The numbers were significant enough that it prompted us to say, when I say us, I'm talking about NOCTI. It prompted us to go ahead and implement a badge system for the fall. So anyone who uses our assessments this coming fall for any of those assessments has access to a digital badge if they want to take advantage of it. We saw, and I don't want to take any Marie's thunder, but we saw a lot of anecdotal evidence about the importance that, I'll put it this way, the emphasis that is placed on something that students typically consider a standardized test. You know, students go through so many standardized tests that they thought, well, this standardized test is a little bit different because I have the opportunity to earn a digital badge, and I have an opportunity to display this badge for whoever, for friends, for my parents, for a potential employer. So it raised the level of visibility and importance for a standardized test. It made a standardized test in technical assessments stand out among all other standardized assessments that students take. So for that reason alone, we thought it was important to move forward because we really believe that, you know, this is something that can help students, and that's really what we're all about.
It's a good transition to Marie to start getting into, and I know that she's going to be able to share some real sort of early outcomes of their participation in this beta. So to that, John, you could pass it to Marie, and we'll jump into the plans and UKIPA Regional Occupational Program.
Got it.
A moment. Unfortunately, my mouse is not clicking forward. Okay. As they said, I am Marie Perotti, and I work for the Colton Resident UKIPA Regional Occupation Program, also known as CRIROP. For those who are not familiar with ROPs, they are one of the main delivery systems of CTE in our state. Before, I wanted to give you a little bit of background of how it came to be that we tested the badging program in California. First, CTE is a mentor-teacher program specifically designed for CTE teachers that was developed by CRIROP out of our teacher induction program. It was a model program picked up by the state, so CTE teaches in partnership with the California Department of Education. In 2011-12 school year, CTE Teach facilitated a data-driven instructional improvement training project, and that was on a small scale. The banded in 12-13, and it included the pilot of digital badging. We just wanted to test the concept, and we were interested in also testing the technology. And we all wanted to find out if badges would be a student motivator, as students are dialed into technology and gaming, and many students were already familiar with badging for skill goals when gaming. So we thought this was kind of a no-brainer. Let's see if they match up. The data-driven instructional improvement project included 29 schools 35 teachers participated. 1,088 students successfully completed the project, and this included using national assessments from NASDCTEc, pre-testing students in fall, training teachers to identify learning gaps in their pre-test, covering 15 centers recognized in California. To communicate concepts, we first included the information in a training webinar in September to mentors and administrators. That again reinforced during a common session training in October, which included all teachers and mentors. We also designed a flyer for students and parents and sent that home early in spring. We also, throughout the year, mentioned them during webinars and also used a student goal-setting worksheet. The worksheet was actually key. Students were given a copy of their individual scores and were asked to fill in the student worksheet on their own. The students were given the class average, their test results, the national average, and then they were asked to set a goal. They needed to obtain that 70% or better to earn the digital skills badge. This will be a time to mention that the students who passed with that 70% or better would also receive the college credit recommendation, as John was talking about, and good at over 1,500 colleges nationwide. 222 students qualified to receive the digital skills badge and college credit recommendation. And the teachers indicated that they felt the badges did motivate their students. And we also heard from several teachers that students who entered after pre-testing wanted to take the post-test to try to earn for the badge. And that was key to us also because we looked at that and thought, wow, this really means something. So this would have meant that maybe they entered the program in second semester and they saw what the other students were already doing. And they in turn said, hey, I want to get in on this and I want to try for the badge. Conducted site visits. Each teacher after the post-test season and heard from students that the badge made them think more about what they were learning in their CTE courses and their future career goals. The process was a viable way to collect another level of student data to promote programs, engage students, and partner with industry. In our view of the challenges we identified was how are we going to get industry buy-in? The billing emails that we collected during the post-test process, and that is how the students get access to their digital badge, and if they're not putting it in accurately, then that's a problem. And how and what to do with the badges. Instructional Improvement Project and the Digital Skills Badge is rolling out again for the 14-15 school year. This program is targeting successful completion of 1,800 students. So to effectively roll this out nationally, some of the things that I found, the keys to success would be administrator, mentor, and teacher training, targeting business and industry, highlighting the benefits and what's in it for them, promoting it to students of how badges can be used, linking the badges to the skills obtained and the benefits, also key, and please staff into the project. So that was kind of, in summary, the California experience, and we piloted for that first year, is rolling out this year. And with that, if there's any questions, I can take now or wait till the end.
That was great. That was really helpful and definitely mirrored some of the broader conversation. Board with Russ, hopefully is called in to Southern California, and then we'll come back around and just to seed, I think some of the questions we'll come back to, and some of the major themes are about, I think, bringing in sort of the external partners in terms of, you know, validating additional skills and how that matches up with sort of the competencies required for graduation, as well as, I think, some of the nuts and bolts for, and I think, Marie, you can speak to this, for, you know, a district or a school looking to sort of jump in or get started, sort of what those first steps are. So with that, why don't we turn it over to Russ, and then we'll probably have a good 10, 12 minutes left for some Q&A at the end.
Russell, you may have your phone on mute. Who is the call-in user? Go ahead and speak up if you dialed in today. I don't think we have an answer yet.
Sure. All right. Well, in the meantime, why don't I go back to see if we can tackle that question. So the first question, and I think this could go to actually any of you, in terms of, district, and Maria, I definitely welcome your response too. As a district sort of look to jump into this, we've had a couple of questions about where to get started. What sort of first, obviously with the NOCTI system, you have a built-in set of assessments you are using. But more broadly, sort of what are the first steps in terms of moving towards a badging-based system at sort of a school level? And so Maria, I'm not putting you on the spot. Anybody who wants to jump in to help answer that.
Hi, this is Jade. I'm happy to take it. Yeah, so in terms of when you're first starting to think about developing a badge system, the main advice that we give, from lessons learned, talking to early developers of badge systems from the last 2 or 3 years, has been to really think about what your outcomes or goals are, to think about what badges can do that your existing assessment or credentialing methods can do. In terms of the technical side, there are a lot of different options. There are sort of organizations with the technical support and resources. There's various sort of code-based implementation options, or if it's without those technical resources, there are also lots of other hosted options from a number of different displayer and issuers. And I'm more than happy to connect anyone on this webinar with a list of those platforms, or with the onboarding documentation to give the technical team.
Yeah, our tech folks have been sitting in on the tech calls for about 1.5 years, and it really has provided some great resources, whether you're of a technical slant or, on the badge community calls on Wednesdays. You get to hear about what other folks around the world really are doing with badges, and it kind of spawns ideas for what you might do in your own particular instance. I've been presenting the CT community for about 1 year now, I think, on badging, and one of the things that I do too is I use a little YouTube video, and it's on something that Jade mentioned, the Chicago Summer of Learning. She mentioned the communities of learning. If you go to YouTube and you just look for what badge, there's a really nice little 3-minute video out there put out by the Chicago Art Institute that I use in my presentations. It really gives you a good overview of what a badge is and what a badge can do. So it kind of gets you thinking, gee, could a badge do this? Could a badge do that? Could a badge do this? And once you have the goals that Jade talked about, then you can start to dig into how you actually want to implement those goals.
Thanks. Well, unfortunately, we seem to have lost Russ. So I'm going to attach to the unattemptable and present on his slides.
Russ, you're joining the webinar right now.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll give him a moment on that. And what's great is for participants, I wanted to draw your attention to the chat box. Jade has shared the YouTube video on earlier, shared a couple links. We'll be sure to elevate these, and when we share the presentation and the slides, we can add some of these links back into the version of the slide deck that we post on our website. So hopefully Russ, his phone situation has been resolved. For the technical.
Russ? We connected to the audio bridge.
Okay, so we will keep moving. So sorry that we're having this trouble, but I will share Russ's slides and make sure that we sort of circle back on it. So we asked them to really talk about is why, California decided to join in this beta test and what they hope to get out of it. And so as you can see from the first slide, it really is to understand the concept and develop the proof of concept. Right? Much like this webinar, as we're discussing, it's a new emerging field. There's a lot of questions about it. It seems like something that can have a meaningful impact, but it's hard to sort of understand whether and how it really does increase student engagement, increases the motivation, and can provide better overall pictures of students' abilities. And, also really go beyond using standardized tests, whether academic or industry-recognized credentials we mentioned earlier. So the opportunity presented itself, and as we heard from Marie earlier, California had a really good infrastructure in place through the CRI-ROP to really help lead this implementation and help develop that proof. Badges, again, as we've sort of been talking about, is really as a way to show the overall progression of skill competence. It's not just doing a snapshot of a skill based on one assessment, but really understand specific skill attainment, but also the broader career readiness that skills fold into, but is bigger than an individual assessment. As we know, in many fields of CT, there aren't really portable, valid, industry-recognized credentials. And so this is a way to potentially fill that gap in measuring student technical skills attainment, both internally for accountability reasons, but also externally to have them have a portable credential they can take with them.
So this is Russ. Can you hear me now?
We can.
You can? Sorry. Having technical problems, I guess. So where were you on my slide? Sorry, I've been messing with my computer.
No problem. I just sort of went through the background of what, why, and how, and I've left the slide up on the screen now for you to go ahead and home.
Yeah, we have a pilot program here in California, and it seems that students are motivated by the digital badging. We're wondering now where to take it as far as bringing it to scale in California. And as I said, we've seen it motivating students to increase not only their CTE performance, but academic performance as well. But we're also thinking about use badges for actually state accountability. We're looking at our state accountability system. And we've had measures for years on academic performance, but nothing on career readiness. And so we're looking at how to, if these students are going to graduate both career and college ready, then what are the indicators of career readiness, and how can we use badges to encourage kids to be more career ready, and how can we use digital badges actually on a broad scope on using actually school accountability. And as Marie said earlier, it's industry buy-in, or will employers actually engage in effort? How to move my slide forward, but I think
Go next to the slide number at the top.
Oh, sorry. There we go. I want to say that from a state perspective, this is a little bit of a pun, but we believe that that badges actually have merit from a state perspective. There's meaning there for the college credit recommendation. think that students, oftentimes we test students and there's nothing in it for them. It's a state accountability system that we use, state assessments, but the student doesn't really get anything out of it. And so to make these assessments more meaningful for students, I think badges present us with that great opportunity. So, meaning, as John was saying earlier. But thank you. Difficulties.
I'm glad you're able to come in and finish up. So with that, we'll sort of open it back up to questions. I know some have been coming in that John and Jade and others have been really sort of responding directly to questions as they've come in. You know, one that sort of sparked me, and I sort of asked this earlier, but I want to sort of come to it. And Jade, I'll sort of turn to you because you identified the cities of learning as sort of one of your examples. And so I'm curious sort of, you know, as you look sort of across the community, multiple schools, potentially multiple districts, you know, partners, you know, John mentioned if they did Habitat for Humanity or Red Cross or sort of other activities. And so what sort of the structures they're putting in place to really bring, you know, to identify the skills that are happening outside of the school walls, which I think is when we talk about measuring and identifying career readiness for students, that often something that raises all the opportunities that happen outside of the school walls to really identify and recognize those skills. So can you, in sort of a few minutes, talk about sort of how structurally or, you know, from a coordination standpoint, that really taken root?
Yep, I think particularly with the cities of learning, the key piece is about just career readiness, you know, because a lot of the, you know, students taking part in the cities of learning are, you know, on the younger end of the scale, sort of within K through 12. But it's not about capturing those career readiness skills, but also about sort of what's often termed soft skills, things like work and collaboration, initiative, self-motivation, all of those things that employers frequently identify as being key skills in their potential candidates, but that aren't easy to capture internal credentials. You know, most of your education degrees aren't going to recognize those skills on a transcript, and goes for a high school diploma. Badges in these settings outside the classroom are really helping to capture the stuff that makes us more well-rounded, the full set of skills, not just those hard skills that are much, you know, granted, much easier to quantify, but also demonstrating, you know, a person's ability to be, you know, a team player and a hard worker.
Thanks. Questions coming in. I want to make sure we get everything. So I guess I'll turn this to really open it up to anybody. Is, you know, how. So importantly, just one point is that we are recording this webinar. We've had a number of requests for it, so it will be available on our website within 24, 48 hours, along with the slides and other resources that have been to make sure we can tell those anybody will view, as well as those who aren't able to join. But any other questions? One last call to see if other questions come in. Well, the question about there was a question earlier that I want to flag, which was, you know, we have called this in the descriptive, and thank you, just the person repeated the question as I was about to reframe it. You know, the big top of John's slide, that there's sort of a new disruption in education. And so whether there are any examples or ways in which we have seen that badges are actually disrupting, and not just being live and you know, providing additional information, but they're actually disrupting sort of the status quo in terms of learning, teaching, or transitions out of high school into, you know, or post-secondary into the workforce.
Hi, John. Since the word disruptive was on my slide, I feel the need to the need to respond. I guess when you think about the word disruptive, we really at this point are talking about a concept, and when you start to look at the concept of badges and what it could do. Now, I'm not talking about what actually are doing, but what it could mean. Right now, for my part, for NOCTI's part, all we really did was we established, a third part actually, the National College Credit Recommendation folks established a criterion reference score on our test, and we basically gave a badge based on a cut score. That's not really that difficult to do. But think about what could happen. If you think about the whole performance aspect, NOCTI does performance tests, but there are other aspects of performance that a couple of the other speakers alluded to, the soft skills, the foundational skills. The reality is, if you have a set of standards and you have a reliable third-party evaluator, you have a credible assessment wherever it occurs. So it's conceivable that someone outside of the educational community could evaluate a student based on a set of standardized, recognized, standards. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I mean it is possible. Maybe the co-op employer evaluates a student's ability to work on time. Maybe they evaluate their team skills. There's a standard rubric that a qualified individual, a qualified evaluator can handle. Maybe we give that opportunity to someone outside of the classroom environment to make that evaluation of that particular individual. So, when you start to think of possible disruptions that could occur, you start to think about, the MOOCs that are out there right now, the massively open online courses. Maybe a digital badge is the way to actually give them, more credibility. So there's potential for disruption. Not that there is a disruption right now, but the concept of once into understanding what a badge is and what it could be, you start to think about, wow, this could do this could do that, and it starts to create a lot of ideas that, be disruptive.
Well, we are at 2 p.m., and that, I think, was a nice sort of way to close out today's webinar, the possibility that these present, and we're still very early in understanding and testing out the wide variety of ways that they can be used, although the Badge Alliance certainly is in the process of collecting those different examples and strategies and so we'll definitely keep our eye on this and share it with the community. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to Russ, me, John, and Jade for taking time out today and sharing your perspectives on this issue. Like I said, we will definitely post this as well as relevant materials. We'll definitely keep this on our radar screen and continue to explore and provide opportunities to learn more about the experiences that we've learned about today, as well as other ones that emerge over time. We have more resources coming through today. So thank you, and have a good rest of the day.